Thank you for joining us today for the event, the Digital Equity Plan for Colorado, presented by Melanie Coletti, Digital Equity Manager at the Colorado Office of Future of Work. In addition to Melanie, Ashley Heathfield, Senior Project Manager at the Colorado Office of eHealth and Innovation, is joining us today. This event is being hosted by the Colorado State Library. My name is Christy Moran. My pronouns are she, ella, and I am the Adult Library Services Senior Consultant, or as I like to say, a librarian for librarians and library staff in Colorado. Today's event is being recorded, and all registrants will receive an email with a link to the recording, any slides, PDFs, or any resources shared. Additionally, I will be sharing a link to a survey. I'll put that in the chat at the end, but we'll also receive it via email. The State Library uses this survey to inform our work and to report on the value of our programming. Melanie and Ashley will leave some time for questions at the end of their presentation. Please use the chat as questions arise for you, and I'll share them with our presenters when it's time for that Q&A, or we'll be putting the answers in the chat. If you put something in the chat and you don't want to say it aloud later, that's okay. We will say it aloud so it's captured on the web recording. And now to our presenter, I'm going to turn it right over.
You're muted, Melanie.
I love it. I love it. This is so typical. So thank you very much for having us today. As I said, some of you first came in the room. I was a librarian for 17 years and I have a soft spot in my heart for libraries. So I'm really glad to share the work that Ashley and I have been doing. And for some of you who are maybe not so unfamiliar with the work, you will hopefully learn some new things in this presentation. So let's see. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit of terminology. The first thing is that digital literacy, digital inclusion, and digital equity are often used interchangeably, but they do have slightly nuanced meanings. Digital literacy is basically whether or not people have skills to use computers to accomplish what they need to do. Digital inclusion is more about what activities are happening systematically to ensure that people are able to participate in digital activities. And then digital equity is like the ideal end state. So if we had digital equity in Colorado, that would mean that everyone had affordable high-speed internet, affordable web-enabled technology or computers, and then effective training and support for digital skill development and use. So do people have a way to learn and continue to be digitally resilient? And I think, I might just hand it right over to you, Ashley. So you can take it away.
Yeah. So many of you may already know this, but digital literacy and access to the internet are now considered super social determinants of health by a lot of research organizations and researchers and globally. So the reason for this is that digital access is really needed in order to access a lot of other supports that folks need. So that can be healthcare via telehealth, educational opportunities that are online, finding out about resources that you may need, such as food banks or other social needs. And so really important that everyone has this as kind of the backbone for them to be able to access any other supports or opportunities that they need to thrive. So if you go to the next slide, I have a couple of examples of kind of what this looks like in reality. And so there's a study that came out looking at Medicare utilization of telehealth in a survey, and it found that 38% of the older adult population in the US, so I think that's about 13 million older adults, are unready for telemedicine. We also did a survey in Colorado a couple of years ago to kind of look at perceptions of telehealth and what are some other factors that lead to lower rates of adoption for particular populations in the state. And so as part of that, I worked with Catherine Keegan at the Office of Future of Work to add in some questions around digital literacy. And again, wanting to see how that impacted someone's willingness to use telehealth or their ability to. And so we found that those with lower digital literacy scores were less likely to have used telehealth, and they were also more likely to feel that the quality of the telehealth visit was less than in-person visits, and that telehealth was difficult to use, even though they had never used it themselves. And so this was really, impactful to us in thinking about, if the folks with lower digital literacy scores also happen to be lower income, older adults of communities of color, and so are belonging to communities of color. And so those respondents not, being willing to try telehealth or having these perceptions of it, means that they're not able to actually benefit or take advantage of telehealth as a means to accessing care. And these populations tend to have more barriers to accessing care in general. So just a good finding to see how we can improve that. Also, studies have come out, Colorado and nationally, around looking at the job landscape and what kind of digital skills are really needed for someone to be successful or to be able to continue in their line of work. And 95% of healthcare and social assistance jobs now require digital skills. Also, in addition to that, the half-life of technology is estimated to be less than 3 years. So what that means is that any digital skill or technology skills that any of us are learning are half as valuable in only 3 years. As technology continues to evolve and grow and change, we all really need an infrastructure that's going to be supportive for to help us continue to evolve along with technology and be able to access the things that we're both used to accessing, as well as, again, continue to maintain employment and find opportunities that we're looking for. So go to the next slide. And so from OHI's perspective, so and just maybe a little bit about our office, we're our Lieutenant Governor's office. We're kind of charged with organizing, coordinating, and leading the health IT strategy for the state. And so my counterparts and I, we do a variety of different things. My work centers on telehealth and digital equity work, which is how I am partnered up with Melanie for life in this line. But OHI has done a couple of things outside of working on the digital equity plan with the Office of Future of Work. One, we are partnered up with the Colorado State Library folks. We are funding 23 rural libraries throughout the state, and you can see kind of a map of where folks are located on the right-hand side, to implement telehubs, we're calling them. So essentially private equipped spaces within the library that a patron can use to connect in with their healthcare provider or a variety of other things that are supportive to their health and well-being. So accessing any virtual health services there. And then libraries could also choose to use the funds to purchase telehealth take-home kits. So if patrons actually have the connectivity they need at home, but just need a little bit of help using the equipment, or just don't have the equipment, they can actually check out a kit and take that home and use that within the comfort of their home. So all of the contracts have actually just been executed last week. So libraries should receive their funding in the next couple of weeks, and we're really excited about kicking that off. This is something that other states have started doing as well, Delaware and Idaho being pretty good examples of that. And so we're excited to see how this works in Colorado and look for opportunities to expand if we're finding a lot of success with that evaluation. And then OHI also is partnered up with the Colorado Broadband Office. We've helped to get over $6 million in funding out to healthcare organizations across the state that support their broadband connectivity and stability and network infrastructure, as well as implementing new service lines. So that we have an organization in the San Luis Valley that's implementing remote patient monitoring for their patients. Folks could also choose to purchase equipment to loan out to patients that are lacking the devices needed to engage in telehealth activities. So yeah, we have been in this space. We're excited again to be with the Office of Future of Work in the digital equity space. And so with that, I will turn things back over to Melanie.
I clicked too quickly. So yeah, some of this work that the state is doing is outside of infrastructure investment and Jobs Act funding, like the programs that Ashley just mentioned. And then a lot of money is coming. People keep saying it's historic funding for both broadband infrastructure across every state and territory in the country, as well as for digital equity efforts. And What this slide is about really is the 2.75 billion that you see there for digital equity initiatives. That's for the entire country. The state of Colorado expects to receive about $20 million in probably, we're looking at now the second or third quarter of 2024. I did not update this slide, but timelines keep getting pushed back. Right now, we're at the tail end of spending $897,000 to create Colorado's digital access plan. We changed it to access instead of digital equity plan. And the bulk of our funding is going to support some cross-sector digital equity coalitions. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. The funding will last for about 5 years. So we're expecting that implementation period to end in 2028. And what we're striving for here is to create that ecosystem that is needed to ensure that digital equity is at the forefront of people's minds, and that communities across Colorado understand what digital inclusion is and what it would take to achieve digital equity in Colorado. So this is sort of the timeline of our digital access plan happenings. So right now, the plan is actually in editing. Our very first draft, Ashley and I finished last Friday after a couple of weeks of hand cramps and eye strain. But it's in, and the editors are looking at it. And once we get that back from the editors, that very first draft is going to go to internal review. So it'll be sent out to leadership at the governor's office, lieutenant governor's office, and other agencies that are mentioned in the plan. For example, Colorado Department of Education. And we'll all get together and look at any edits that we need to make with leadership on the 27th. Once we get that feedback incorporated, we are sending our plan to the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. There are a lot of acronyms, just like libraries. This organization is NTIA. We'll send that to them because our original deadline was November 30th for our plan. We had to file an extension, most states did. And so our first draft will go to them. And then after that, we'll get whatever kind of, it's like a pre-curing or just like an initial review. And once NTIA gives us that feedback, we will start to incorporate some of that. And we will also put the plan up for public comment on December 15th. And we could really use libraries' help in this. For one thing, we're going to offer small contracts like purchase orders to locations who are interested in hosting public comments, and we'll pay somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for those, just one time, couple of hours probably. We'll have guiding questions that are available, as well as translations of the executive summaries of the plan for folks who need them. 1 month for public comment. It'll also be available, obviously, digitally for people to submit comments. And then once we incorporate all of those, it goes to an official 45-day curing process by NTIA. And that just means that they'll review it for to make sure that we're adhering to all the guidelines that they laid out in the grant funding. And then, fingers crossed, everything will be approved on March 29th, 2024. And then it'll take probably till late summer, early fall before we receive our $20 million. And that $20 million will be used to implement all of the things that we've laid out in our plan. All right, so with the help of Bernadette and the Digital Equity Committee and the Digital Equity Working Group, we have a mission and vision statement for our digital access plan. The vision is, pretty aspirational. Every Coloradan has the connectivity, devices, and skills that they need to thrive in our digital society and economy. And the mission is really about partnerships and creating this infrastructure and a roadmap for programs that are related to digital inclusion. It really is about making sure that people have devices and training and connectivity, but with a more kind of connected approach than we've had in the past. And inside this plan, So this is a federal plan, like I said, coming from NTIA, and it's part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is the infrastructure program. They've been calling it the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And in that, we are charged with meeting the digital inclusion needs of 8 covered populations, and those are listed on the left side of the screen. Just looking at some of the locations that you are all from, I know that, for example, rural areas are something that you all might be able to help out with. We're also looking at veterans, people with language needs, people who live in houses that are experiencing poverty, older adults, people who have been justice involved, etc. So for each of those populations, we want to make sure that we are meeting the objectives that you see on the right side of the screen. We want to make sure broadband is affordable and available, that people can access public resources, which are largely online now. Do they have the computers that they need? Can they afford them? Can they afford to repair them? How do they repair them? And then as well, the digital skills and cybersecurity, which is a fun one to try to measure. So with our planning funds, we've been doing so much community engagement, and things like this meeting have been par for the course over the past just over a year. We've been doing a lot of research, including a statewide digital equity survey. We tried to collect assets, meaning just organizations, businesses, internet service providers who've been involved in the digital equity space or who should be. We've conducted lots of listening sessions via our vendors, which I can talk a little bit about, but I'll wait on that. So the Digital Equity Committee is a standing committee. It's every other month, and any of you are more than welcome to attend. I'll have a link to the website in a couple of slides, and you can use that to find calendar dates and times. So Digital Equity Committee is a broad group of stakeholders. We have everybody from like ISPs to social service organizations to local government. Anybody and everybody who wants to come can come. Last month, actually, Christy and Kieran attended and talked about how libraries are engaged in digital inclusion spaces and in communities. And that was super, got a lot of great feedback from that. We also have a digital equity working group, and these folks have really been actively involved in helping us write the plan and think about what we want to include in the plan. It's about 16 people. We also have a state digital equity working group that Ashley and my director, Catherine Keegan, lead to try to align efforts among state agencies around digital inclusion. There were lots of Colorado Broadband Office roadshow stops over the summer where we went out to places like Lyman and Georgetown and heard from local governments about their connectivity and digital equity needs. Ashley and I also attended 2 Rural Philanthropy Day conferences and learned a lot about what rural communities' needs are and how we can maybe structure our opportunities a little differently so that people can actually participate. We did tribal consultations with the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and the Ute Mountain Ute Indian Tribe. And of course, we've done lots of conferences and presentations. So this is a really messy slide, but I wanted, because I know a lot of people have heard about the survey and they're like, you know, where are you guys at with that? And it went really, really well in my opinion, my personal opinion. We had almost 6,000 people complete the surveys, and we had 23 community-based organizations, including some libraries, who, again, we paid about $3,000 to them to host listening sessions, and we paid per survey to get some support for folks who maybe didn't have connectivity or didn't have a computer or just needed help understanding what the survey was. It's kind of jargony. So with the help of those 23 community-based orgs, we got responses in 19 languages. 90% of the respondents to our survey were from at least one of the covered populations, and 40% were referred by those community-based organizations, which was really cool. 7 of our 8 covered populations were represented in the survey. And the only reason we did not get individuals who are currently incarcerated is because we would have had to do some prep work for that we weren't really aware that we needed to do, because they are protected citizen, folks who are currently residing in correctional facilities. And so that will happen during our implementation phase instead of in the planning phase. Basically, some of the responses that we got that stood out were that internet access costs too much. I think probably everybody feels that. Rural connectivity is too slow. Many of the respondents only connect to the internet at home via a mobile phone, which is kind of rough. Many people do not know how to stay safe online or don't even know what cybersecurity means. 35% of our respondents said they never use the internet to improve their skills for work. And that surprised me a little bit. 55% of respondents say they rarely or never use the internet to apply for public benefits. So those are just some of the standouts. For next steps, like I said, the public comment period is coming mid-December through mid-January. And I see a couple of people in the chat have already responded that their libraries may be interested. We can definitely provide more information on that. We also, so for the previous contracts, when we asked community-based orgs to help us with the survey administration and the listening sessions, we did offer translation services, and we'll do that again. So what that might look like is, say your library wants to participate and you know that you have a lot of folks who speak Russian at the location that you want to host the listening session. We would have our executive summary and our targeted questions translated into Russian for your listening session. And if you needed someone to come in person and translate, we could provide someone to do that. If someone from your organization already spoke the language, wanted to take notes and translate them to English for us, that would also be fine. We're also working on creating an implementation process for how we're going to subgrant the money when it comes. So we're designing kind of, the RFP process. What does that look like? We want to create a budget. We need to tell NTIA how much we're going to spend on what. And we also want to think about strategies for implementation. So that's all kind of happening now while we're waiting to get edits back and forth between us and our editors. So stepping outside of the digital equity funding, we also have a digital navigator pilot happening right now, and that's in collaboration with AmeriCorps Serve Colorado. This is part of a state legislation opportunity called the Expansion of Experiential Learning Opportunities, and the two administrating organizations that are managing this via AmeriCorps are Larimer County Libraries and the Learning Source. The locations are over on that map to the right. So they're primarily Front Range, although we do have Buena Vista, I believe, Red Feather Lakes, and a couple that are a little outside of the Front Range. Again, this is a pilot, so hopefully we're going to be incorporating digital navigation services into the digital access plan sooner rather than later. But some of the things that might be useful to some of you is the community of practice will be open to anyone who wants to participate, who is currently providing that one-on-one digital navigation service to someone, whether their primary goal is to connect people to telehealth or to connect them to work opportunities. We want to support people in that piece of that one-on-one assistance that looks like showing someone how to use a device, or showing someone how to create a resume or fill out a form, or whatever it is that they need to do online. So if you would like more information about that, I'll share the slides with Christy, and you'll be able to click on these links and go to the one about digital navigators. And that will help you with how to get looped into that community of practice for yourself or anyone else on your staff who might need that. The digital navigator process is going to be iterative, just like actually our whole digital access plan. It kind of, I know many of you have done this work already, but a lot of it is about relationship building, getting to know what someone's needs are outside of that one task that they want to accomplish. And so we'll be gathering data from the digital navigators who are participating in the AmeriCorps program, because the navigators will ask them things like, you know, do you need resources for other things? And if they do, you know, they can make referrals, things like that. So that's part of the infrastructure that we're building in Access Command. We're using largely the digital navigator model that's provided by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, so NDIA as opposed to NTIA, which is a fun one. Digital Inclusion Alliance, National Digital Inclusion Alliance is the heavy hitter when it comes to digital equity work. They are a nonprofit, they're nationwide. You can become a member, your library can become a member at no charge and participate in meetings and find out more about not just digital navigators, but what do digital equity coalitions look like. It's very robust website, highly encourage everyone to participate if you're able to. And then of course, Denver Public Library has, I think 7 digital navigators right now, and they've been really generous with helping us kick off our program. This is a mess. So I want to talk a little bit about digital resilience because I think, you know, even for all of us in this room, we are obviously digitally skilled enough to log into Zoom and attend a meeting and look at notes and chat and all of that jazz. This is something that's a concern for not just the 8 covered populations, but for every Coloradan. We need to make sure that we're always aware of changes in the digital inclusion landscape, that we're educating ourselves primarily, but also, especially in libraries, you know, it's okay and it's important to share that this is the work that the state is doing. This is the work that our library does. Tech classes, individual appointments, all those things. And then also working together. And so before I just share the slide on the ACP, which you're already probably saw quickly, I want to talk about our coalitions because this is going to be the crux of our work. We are working toward building coalitions in either regions or cities or communities so that they have both a community of practice where they can share ideas, successes, challenges, and they can uplift the needs of the community or the city or whatever to us so that we can then think about how to fund communities' digital equity needs. What's been going on now is very piecemeal or not happening at all. We want to have this really good feedback loop between people on the ground, including libraries, healthcare centers, internet service providers, like anybody and everybody. If there's a business in a community that hires lots of people, but there aren't enough people with digital skills to work there, all of those people should be participating in these coalitions and having conversations around not just an individual organization or an individual population. We're hoping that these conversations are going to be able to bring about real significant change in communities and also share with state leadership, the people with the money, what needs there are on the ground. And we also want to loop in here some maybe national organizations like hopefully Hispanic Federation. I've talked to them before, AARP. You know, there's lots of big national organizations that have support with funding and other kinds of support. And they might be able to say, oh, you know, this region has a large number of Spanish speakers. So could we help fund some of the digital equity work that's happening there? We also have lots of foundations and philanthropy in Colorado that I think might be interested in supporting some of this work. So that's the basic shell of how this will work. We're also working on the device access piece, which, you know, we're trying to loop in some maybe community colleges who might want to offer like an A+ program at their college so that people can get credit for learning to refurbish computers. And then those refurbished computers can be available to, say, rural communities, for example. So there are some things that we're going to try and pilot during our implementation period. But that's kind of the two big things that we're thinking about. Oh, there's the affordable connectivity. And I'm sure most of you know about this already, but I want to make sure that it is in everybody's mind that there's this $30 per month discount for broadband services, either mobile phone or home internet. If people go through the right channels, they can also get a $100 discount on a device. But I know many of you also know that the ACP is on kind of shaky ground and that it's likely going to run out of money by maybe March, April, May, June of next year. We're still, from a state perspective, encouraging people to apply anyway, because it shows a need. There is a possibility that Colorado would consider its own subsidy program, but I think the more people sign up for ACP, the more of a need we can demonstrate. And there's also a request to Congress from the White House for an additional $6 billion to extend this program. So, you know, whether or not that actually gets approved, we won't know for a while, but a lot of people are really advocating to keep this going. So, you know, just wanted that to be in everybody's minds. And then, I mean, this was a very short presentation, but I do want to leave plenty of time for questions. And we can go into depth about some of the other things in the plan if you all are interested. I just wanted to make sure everybody had like the basic understanding and then, you know, kind of the direction that we're headed. So anything else to add, Ashley? Oh,
Yeah.
no, you're muted.
I think the only thing that just sticks out to me, as you know, like Melanie said, we collected a lot of data, and the qualitative data was just so rich. And I was trying to find a quote I was going to pop in the chat, but you know, I think to Melanie's description of the regional collaboratives, that is something that came up again and again in that data is like, why why should the state be doing this? Why aren't we empowering local communities to address their own needs? And so I'm just really proud of how we've really tried to keep that in mind throughout this entire planning process, and how we're going to prioritize that in the implementation process is making sure that a lot of these federal funds really are going to community directly. And again, kind of empowering communities to address the needs that they see as the biggest challenges. So anyway, thanks for being interested in this work. We're really passionate about it, and it's been a lot of our time in the last year and going forward. So just thanks for your interest in all of this. And yeah, happy to take any questions.
So again, I put some things in the chat, which will get sent to folks. The State Library has a digital inclusion page that has a lot of the links and resources that Melanie and Ashley have mentioned, including, I just updated it with the telehealth rural pilot. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll ask them, or we'll read them and ask them of our presenters. In the meantime, there are a few things that we should mention. So there's some work that the State Library, we've been trying to kind of put out there that we will help rural, but also Front Range libraries, small, but also larger libraries connect with the work and the digital equity work that the Office of Future Work and OHI are doing. This includes NDIA, which Melanie mentioned. Again, free membership as an individual. If you feel that you have the capacity, please join. There's a lot of conversation, and there is a library work group that was just started in collaboration with Tracy from Denver Public Library. Denver Public Library's resources, including their digital literacy instruction curriculum, is free, and they offer it to everybody. A lot of that is available on that website. So coloradostatelibrary.org/digital inclusion. In addition, we've been putting webinars for things like OATS, so that's Older Adult Technology Services. That is also a partner who is on the Digital Equity Committee. We will have opportunities for libraries to become training sites through a partnership with CDLE, which is like the bigger umbrella agency where Office of Future Work is located. So thank you, Melanie, for that. So I don't see any questions in the chat. I will then go ahead and ask some questions. Melanie, you've worked in libraries. You know how we already do a lot of digital literacy and digital skills kind of instruction. Is there, yes, Janet, I'm going to put that link in the chat again. Is there anything that, any opportunity that you see for our libraries to engage maybe in a new way through the digital equity plan? In other words, what else can we do specifically in our context, thanks to the digital equity plan or in collaboration with one another in the digital equity group?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see a couple of opportunities. I know, and I know many of you are from little bitty libraries, that sometimes there's maybe 2 people staffing a library total, and we're hoping not to increase work for you all. For example, when we start identifying which coalitions we want to start funding, and we'll start with planning funds first. I think it's going to take a couple of years to get this up and going. But especially in places where the library is a safe place for people to come in and where they feel comfortable and they feel familiar with the people working there, we would like to be able to offer some digital navigation help so that it doesn't just fall on the library staff to do those sorts of things. And, participating in, I feel like libraries have been like the original digital inclusion practitioners for so long that it's really, really vital for libraries to participate in the coalition structure, because I think the things that you all see and know and understand about digital inclusion needs need to be really brought to the surface. So it's like I guess it's just like a different way to like lift your own voices up, sometimes it's hard to speak to library leadership. I understand that. I worked at a giant library system, and it was very hard for me to express some of the things that I was seeing to people in a way that some actual change could happen. And we're hoping that by you participating, we'll be able to elevate those issues that you all see. I also think the Digital Navigator Coalition or Community of Practice is just going to be a great opportunity for people to share what they know, because we plan to have like career navigators and healthcare navigators participate. They'll be able to share what it's like to help with health-related issues online, for example, while folks like you all might be able to help with like, here's what it's like to fill out forms for Section 8 housing, or here's some challenges that I encountered helping people on the state website. And again, we want to be the people who actually initiate change around the feedback that we're hearing. So I think those are some maybe new things that like there's a different route for that feedback and hopefully different outcomes.
We have a couple of comments and questions in the chat, and I think they're related. So I'm going to go ahead and ask them both. And so captures that on the recording. I have actually resources for that. So Janet says, there's a lot going on. Accurate. I'm from a rural area with a leadership vacuum. How can we get some strategic help to use all those resources? And then Tracy agrees, wants help for the resources, and mentions housing is such a struggle in our community that digital navigators in person are ideal, but very difficult. So I do want to mention, I did mention OATS, right? Older Adults Technology Services. A lot of that is stuff that, yes, you can use their curriculum and do like a one-shot workshop. You can do a lecture series, but they also have, and this is really crucial, they also have online technology assistant for point of need. So in other words, you have one person at the desk, and that's the person who's also walking around and reshelving books and also answering the phone. There may not be an opportunity for you to also do one-on-one tech help for someone who's sitting there using the computer at this moment to do tax work. Okay, so having maybe the link to their tech help one-on-one, can help that person who's there just literally click on the icon and connect. Those resources are available to you. Me at the State Library, Christy Moran, I can put my email in the chat, though you probably have it if you're here. And Kieran, a rural and small libraries consultant, can absolutely help you find those resources and maybe integrate them. How leadership at your library or in your community enables, empowers, or sometimes stops you from accessing those resources. We can help give you some strategies, but that's like a demonstrating the need. The need is there. The need is there for digital help, and it shouldn't fall on all of us alone to do it, especially in small and rural communities. It's going to be tapping into those local resources. And again, a lot of those are partners that are in your area right now. It's just that you didn't know they existed because you didn't sit on the Digital Equity Committee. And that's okay. That's what we're here for. So I'm going to put some links in the chat for that, or point you to those, Janet and Tracy. But yeah, can you speak to that also, Melanie? Like other perhaps resources for those who cannot engage in-person digital navigators?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, and again, this is going to be a little bit of time, but ideally, we've talked about having something like that, like a state. Well, there's a couple things. One, I'm in the process of meeting with 211 to find out if we can get some taxonomies that work for like things that people are looking for, like computer skills training, device access, all of that. Like, this kind of happened a couple of years ago before I was on board, and it sort of like fizzled out a little bit. And I think that's part of our plan, is to get back in touch with 211 so that people can call and say, you know, my computer died, I need a new computer. Is there someone I can get it somewhere I can get a free or discounted computer? Or can someone walk me through this thing? Or is there someone who can help me one-on-one with digital skills? So that is a goal that we are aiming for, but I don't know how long it's going to take to get there. So that would be one way. And we understand that not everybody is going to be able to drive or you know, get help online. So we want to have that phone option available. I'm just not entirely sure what it's going to look like yet. And Ashley, yeah, go ahead.
You always know. Well, I just wanted to share. So actually, I was just connected with somebody this morning through the Learning Source that, you know, Jesse and Melanie are leading that digital navigator program. And so there's going to be a navigator that's actually splitting their time physically between the Salida Library, the Buena Vista Library, and the Leadville Library. I think, you know, there's obviously a lot, you know, there's the state's piloting things, but that's also one of those opportunities that we hope for in the regional collaborative. So we hope that the planning funding will help build regional capacity, because we know that it takes time to coordinate all of these different actors in a community, and kind of bringing folks together and figuring out, well, what is our community's biggest priority? But then we intend to then fund those communities that have, you know, created their own plans, so that they can then implement and start implementing what they find meaningful. So let's say that your community, you know, you really want to be a digital navigator in your community. Ideally, you would then be able to take some of this funding and you could pay someone that's already in your community to be that person. That's what we would really like. So that's just kind of one idea of how this could work. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because housing is really, really challenging, especially in some of these, in the mountain communities. And so ideally, this is part of an overall plan that not only helps to address digital access needs, but also, you know, create opportunities within a community, and, you know, employment opportunities throughout this process. I mean, that would be ideal. So anyway, that's just one way.
I put the AARP, okay, OATS and Senior Planet and AARP, same thing. Okay, that's like a thing. I put their hotline link in the chat. That's a link, but also you'll note there's a phone number on there, because hear me out here. If you need digital help, you may need actually to talk to somebody to get on the computer in order to click that link. So that's there. Feel free to use it. It is free. All of our libraries should and can engage with that. Again, if you want more information about that, there's going to be opportunities for our libraries, especially small libraries, to have the resources at the state to actually use the OATS curriculum program, which I could walk you through. And I could also share with you the webinar that they did for us, the OATS and Senior Planet for Colorado libraries. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'll find the video and put it in the chat. I also put the list of, so that list is from May, which is the Digital Equity Committee members who offered contact information, different things. So some people can get you devices and some people can like get you volunteers. Some of them just want to know, how can we help you? You'll note that some of them have overlapping missions. So in other words, Financial Health Institute. They're not just going to be about digital equity, but very specifically digital equity in the financial empowerment kind of sector and space. Your workforce centers in your areas are very powerful. I will point you again, we mentioned the Loveland and Larimer County partnership. There is nothing like their partnership. And that's a workforce development council, that's a library, and then they were able to tap into the AmeriCorps resources, and they have digital navigators. And like Ashley said, there are some libraries who will be able to benefit from essentially a traveling digital navigator. It's a person, so that's not a 24/7, they're going to be at your library every single day kind of thing. Then again, our libraries are not open 24/7 every single day often. So any other questions? So I just want to point out, Tracy mentioned something awesome, which is maybe the state, and that's not me, I don't have this money, can buy an RV like the vaccine bus, but for digital navigators. I would love that for Wi-Fi. Some of our communities don't even have that. So that's a challenge. But yeah, it's definitely something worth mentioning. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? We still have some time. Yeah, Melanie.
I forgot one thing too. So we are in the process of buying this software right now. And I don't know how I forgot about this. So we did our asset mapping, and we heard from lots of different types of organizations and businesses about where in the space. Some of those actually provide services like technology help or, whatever it is, housing services, I don't know. And so we are going to compile what we have now and continue to build upon that list as we implement our plan. And we will make the resources specifically for folks needing digital skills training or device access available publicly. So that is coming. We hope to have a map that will just kind of show who's doing what in which spaces. So that will be useful at some point as well. And that will be our job to maintain that. I know a lot of libraries have their own stuff in communities and things, and it's hard. I've done that too. Like I helped write a resource guide for people leaving prison and living in the Pueblo area, and it is rough, right? Because they're out of date as soon as you publish them. So that will hopefully be useful to you all as well.
In the chat, Bernadette, who is at Jeffco, writes that they're hiring a digital navigator under the Learning Source partnership, and they have been helpful in guiding us through the process. So Jeffco Library through the process. Any other questions or observations that anyone would like to make while we have our guests with us? And thank you again, Melanie and Ashley. They have done so much for libraries besides like work a reference desk. They have worked so hard for libraries in the last, since I've been here, which is last year or so, and since the digital equity plan kind of kicked off. So I'm really grateful for that. Okay, I do not see. Oh,
I would also say too, if you have opinions, advice, like we are open to it. We are not like, nothing is absolutely completely set in stone. I mean, we are going to go forward with coalitions, but if you're like in a really small community and it's just like you and 2 restaurants and and you're like, how are we supposed to apply for funding? Here's what would be helpful to us. Please tell us, because we have not created those processes yet. and we could really use your input. We are not going to be hurt or offended. We genuinely want to know. I know library staff are often very like polite and very like, I don't want to ruffle feathers, but it is
Lies,
please.
lies and slander. I will put in that speaking of that, I put in the survey link for this webinar and presentation. And so I asked like, hey, it's time. Can we get you guys to talk about the digital equity plan so far and how it impacts libraries and connects with libraries? So far means that it's going to change, and it's going to be iterative, and it's going to progress, and things are going to change. So absolutely keep your eye out for future, and it's not going to be 2 months from now. I'll have other stuff 2 months from now, which obviously, but in the future, there's going to be more revisiting the digital equity plan, revisiting the telehealth pilot, revisiting other things that have occurred, because maybe some of the stuff doesn't work for you, but then you find out, oh, actually this one thing did work for a really small library like ours. Oh, thank you, Melanie. In any event, I'm going to stop the recording now. If anyone wants to stay on, great. You can ask off recording some questions, and you know how to find us. So let me go ahead and do that now.